when you first came out, I was like, boy, this guy, he's fast talking. Did you sense, Drew, you were so different than the classic older model that a lot of people, you got some blowback. Did you sense it?
Oh, yeah. I intentionally try to be different, Colin. It was a very competitive business when I broke in 1988. I was 22 years old. I was a second-year law student from Duke University School of Law. And it was an established industry. It wasn't as balanced as it is today. It was really dominated by a handful of agents at that time. And I figured for me to make a name for myself, I had to be different. In those days, I was certainly brash. I did use the media to my advantage. And it did make quite a few enemies in the agent business. At one time, I was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, known as the most hated man in pro football. But listen, that was good for business. And quite frankly, just being in the eye of the media early on established me as a known commodity, and being based here in South Florida, I was able to really capitalize on all the terrific players down here.
Who was the first established agent that wasn't an enemy, that put his arm around you, that actually reached out? And that probably took a while, but was there one or two guys that reached out in the first? There was not a one?
There still aren't any. Just the guys who work with me. My brother Jason, Robert Bailey, Ryan Matha are the only agents that I consider to be friends. This is such a hyper competitive business, Colin, that I probably have had a client leave all the top agents to come to me, and I probably have had a client that's left me to sign with another of the top agents. It's a war zone out there. The recruiting is very cutthroat, and there really isn't much margin for friendship among your competitors. It's really unique because there's no second place. There's nothing for runner up. I mean, you could beat out 100 agents and finish number 2 to get a player, and that means absolutely buckets. I mean, zero, nothing. And I can tell you, as a result of that, it's a highly competitive business, and you're out to beat the competitive agents, and you really don't have time. It's not beneficial to be friendly with the guys that you're competing with.
For years, Tom Condon was a guy that was known. He took, quote, high character guys. And when you started, hell, you just needed guys. And I remember you took some big personalities, but over time, are you taking the same clients, or are you pickier today?
Oh, I would say that I still have an open mind to represent individuals that I connect with. I don't have, Colin, any particular, let's just say, qualifications, other than I'm looking to represent players who are obviously good people and talented, from essentially where I can connect with them, and that's what matters. I don't judge a book by the cover, so I've gotten to know guys that other agents may have been intimidated by, and found out that they were the best people you could possibly represent. And I really don't have any regrets. I have represented quite a few personalities, dominant personalities, and don't shy away from big personalities today either.
Give me an incident since 1989 in the draft where your phone rings right before a pick. Has that ever happened?
Oh yeah, I mean, with Willis McGahee, he was a young man who blew his knee out in the college national championship game, the Fiesta Bowl, against Ohio State, and he was on the draft. And and Colin, quite frankly, there wasn't a lot of calls for Willis in the early to mid portion of the first round, and ESPN kept flashing him. So I decided the next time they flashed him on TV, instead of him sitting there looking bored, waiting for the phone to ring, I would call him so it looked like he was on the phone with teams. So I called from my cell phone. I called Willis. We're talking to each other. Willis is on the phone. All of a sudden, my call waiting goes through, and it's the Buffalo Bills. And at that time, the Bills were curious who Willis was talking to. And I wouldn't tell them who he was talking to. I just said, use your imagination. And they assumed it was another team. And they decided that if he was on the phone with another club, there was a good chance he was going to be picked. And not long after I spoke to them, they drafted Willis. So believe it or not, I think that had something to do with them taking him. You want to create the impression at all times that your client's about to get selected.
That's a great story. Now, have you had a draft day disaster? I don't know who reps Laramie Tunzel. I felt so bad for the kid. I grew up in Washington State. People smoke pot, okay? And I see this thing come out, and I think, well, hell, he's still great. What do I care? The way I looked at that, Drew, was, oh, good, it'll scare off half the league. I'll take him. So I don't know who repped him, but have you ever had a draft day disaster?
Yeah, it was incredibly frustrating for Rob Gronkowski that we were at the draft with Rob, and somehow the teams overlooked him because of a back injury and didn't take him in the first round. And we had to wait until early in the second round for the Patriots to call. But that was really tough because I thought Rob was absolutely one of the elite players in the draft. And we fully anticipated that someone was going to take that uber talented guy in the first round. And, to the chagrin of the rest of the league, they blew it. And Bill Belichick knew what he was doing and took Rob. But Rob obviously should have been one of the first players drafted that year.
By the way, when did you first spot Rob?
When did I spot Rob? I'll tell you, it was a tip from Jerry Angelo when Rob was a true sophomore. Jerry Angelo told me, because he coached Rob's father, Gordy Gronkowski, and Papa Gronk, they call him. And Jerry Angelo told me that he thought Rob was going to be a great player before anyone knew who he was. So I started recruiting him. And the crazy thing about Rob is that he wasn't really that well known early on because he had this back injury and he had to miss his junior year, and then he came out. So really, I got very lucky in recruiting Rob, and he turned out to be, probably the greatest tight end who's ever played the game.
Like Rob, give me another tip, something you are really damn proud of, where you spotted a player and then you knew a month before the draft that every agent hated you because you found a gem.
Wow. Antonio Brown going in the 6th round from Central Michigan was a great signing for us.
Oh, tell me.
Antonio was a guy I was very familiar with. He grew up in Miami. He was a high school, phenom here in Miami. He had some issues early in his college career, transferred out of a couple schools, wound up going to small Central Michigan. And we thought he was a fantastic player. And we signed him, even though the league was behind on him, and he got drafted in the 6th round. And he's another guy that, in my opinion, when he's all said and done, will be in the Hall of Fame. But that was one I'm very proud of in identifying. Who would think a 6th round pick would go on to become an absolute, superstar like Antonio Brown has been.
So tell our audience, Drew, when can you first contact a college athlete?
I can really contact a college athlete the minute they get into college. There's nothing against the rules with communicating. The basic premise of the NCAA rules that apply to agents and players when it comes to football is that we're not allowed to, one, give them or their family or friends anything of value. Two, we're not permitted to enter into any type of informal or formal agreement with them, verbal or orally, or they're the same, actually, verbal or written, I meant to say. And, without a doubt, we're certainly encouraged to limit our communications with them until they're either entering the draft or their senior years. But there's really no prohibition in the NCAA or most colleges that prohibit you from at least communicating with a player and or their family.
It doesn't take a wild imagination for me, knowing what you said about your contact with players, to figure out Nick Saban's going to be a hard ass if you contact his players. What do you have to do? Because Alabama's got the most of them. What do you have to do to contact one of his players?
Well, you better follow the rules, or you're going to feel the wrath of Nick Saban. You're right. He's not a fan of you contacting his players during the season. He asks that you wait until after the season to have communication with them. Really, you want to deal with a player's family and deal through the school. The school has a protocol where they actually will encourage you to come to campus and meet with the player before the season at the football facility. So Alabama has a very hands-on policy. They do a great job. We represent a recent first-round pick from Alabama and Rashaan Evans. I have a lot of respect for Coach Saban. I've known him a long time and dealt with him for a long time, and we're going to follow their protocols.
I hate to use the word controlling, but anybody else at Alabama's level in terms of organizationally protecting their players?
Clemson is right there. Ohio State. I think those are programs. Florida comes to mind that in my dealings do a really good job of keeping tabs on agents and players and their communications. This is about to blow up, though, Colin. We're about to go into a whole new world in college football with agents and marketing people, and it's called NIL, name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
In the state of Florida, on July 1st, Florida passed a law that college athletes can begin to enter into endorsement agreements and have marketing deals based on their name, image, and likeness. So college players are going to be able to make money. They're going to be able to do deals with marketing agents. Agents like myself are going to be able to go out and procure marketing deals for players. So this has been passed in Florida. The NCAA hasn't ruled on this yet, or they don't have a formal ruling, but it's coming, and it's coming soon, and it's going to change the whole dynamics of college football, because it's inevitable that college players are going to be able to make money and deal with agents and have endorsement deals. So get ready. College football and amateurism is going to become professional football.
Well, conservative governors tend to be more pro-business. So Florida, DeSantis, he's going to pass this puppy. California, Gavin Newsom, California, just frankly, as an attorney, has more regulations all through our government. So we know Florida is going to open it up. Where's Texas at? Where's California at on that stuff?
Really, Florida and New Mexico are the only states, to my knowledge, that have formally passed the law, but there are quite a few other states that I've heard that are on the verge of doing the same. And I'm following this very closely, because when it is permissible, we're going to be, getting after it. We're going to recruit all of the top college players with marketing deals, and this is going to be the wave of the future. Every top college player is going to be inundated with marketing opportunities from agents like myself, and so colleges and universities are going to have to deal with that. And college football is going to be very different moving forward, and the colleges are going to have to embrace the NIL, because they're going to need to use it in recruiting. If a program has alumni that can bring endorsement deals to players, they're going to get a lot more deals than for players in, say, a program that doesn't have a relationship with alumni that have endorsement deals. It's really going to take off.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I'm Stanford, and I know that's not a football powerhouse, but hell, half their graduates work at Apple and Google and YouTube. Yeah. I mean, seriously, I think about that, and I think Apple has a lot of Pac-12 graduates inside their company. And if I was Apple, I'd think, yeah, just go go take care of Stanford players. I mean, would there be anything outlawing that?
Nope, not that I'm aware of. And I mean, you look at the University of Central Florida, you know what's on the back of the players' jerseys now? It's not their names, it's their Twitter handle. It's their Twitter name. And that's brilliant, because that is the world that we are about to enter. Get ready for college football and their players to make money. And, you know, the top guys are going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the best players are going to start to really rack up the money. And, hey, I've been an agent for 33 years, and I've said from day one, college players should absolutely be able to make money on endorsements. And that time has finally arrived, and it's going to be official in a matter of months.
Well, Johnny Manziel in Texas, Tim Tebow in Florida, and Reggie Bush in California, you could be in those states during their prime, and their jersey was more worn than professional athletes in the same area. So to your point, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, by the way, he would have been a guy that would have sold those jerseys. Now,
yes,
when you talk about all these contracts, pat yourself in the back here. What is the contract you are proudest of? And it may not be the biggest. It may have been a general manager, an old school guy that you had to arm wrestle. But when you were done, you knew that night when you laid your head on the pillow, you really worked your butt off for it.
Yeah, I think probably the contract that everyone was most impressed with was more than likely the deal that we worked out for Antonio Brown with the Raiders. And it wasn't a knock on the Raiders, because we had other teams that were interested in doing the same deal. But what was unique about that particular contract was that really for the first time in NFL history, a player with 3 years left on a contract got a $30 million guarantee and became the highest paid player at his position with 3 years left on his deal. That was really a rare accomplishment. So looking back at my career, that deal really stands out as one that I'm proud of. But I mean, there's really so many, you know, over a 30-year span. It's more of like every year there's one or two deals that really jump out. But I'd say from a notoriety standpoint, that contract with Antonio Brown and the Raiders was really unique contract under those circumstances.
You know, with Jerry Jones, there's always been this overriding sense, Drew, that if he wants something, he gets it. Do you deal with Steven or Jerry, for instance, on the Cowboys?
Well, early in my career, Jerry had a tremendous presence. I dealt with Jerry and Steven both when it came to representing a player like Terrell Owens. Early in my career, I had some of their, I think in one of their first draft classes, they took a couple of my clients, Kevin Williams and Jimmy Jones. And this was very early on with Jerry Jones, and he was extremely involved. But now I think Steven is taking over more of the day-to-day negotiations when it comes to me and the players that we represent. Now Jerry may have been very involved with Dak Prescott, but a lot of our negotiations with the Cowboys, and we have 3 clients on the team right now, and we had several negotiations with them this offseason. We're really done with Steven Jones and his team.
You know, it's interesting, Drew. So the late Paul Allen made his money in tech. Jerry made it in oil and real estate. So when I think of Jerry, I think his 2 industries are negotiating industries. Whereas with a tech billionaire, he may be a brilliant tech guru, but he may not be a negotiator. Have you found that certain ownership businesses are just greater negotiators?
Absolutely. Jerry is a tremendous negotiator and a great recruiter. I'll never forget when he picked Terrell Owens and myself up at an airport, and we flew on his private jet, you know, and he was a great recruiter, very charming, was a tremendous negotiator. And I'm sure he still is. So, yeah, that jumped out at me. He was without a doubt a very hands-on owner. And there are other great owners like Robert Kraft, for example, from the Patriots. But Robert Kraft is one of the all-time great owners, in my opinion. But when it comes to dealing with the Patriots, he's really the type of owner that gives Coach Belichick great independence. And they work so well together because of it. So it's a different dynamic when you look at Robert Kraft with the Bill Belichick relative to a Jerry Jones. Every ownership model is different. If an owner's lucky enough to have, you mentioned a Rich McKay, the owner doesn't have to be that involved like Arthur Blank, because McKay is an outstanding NFL executive. But there are other owners that are extremely hands-on. Earlier in my career, I dealt with Dan Snyder with the Redskins when he was very involved. You know, he was hands-on with moves like trading for a player like Santana Moss or Clinton Portis. Many of the discussions that we had drafting a Sean Taylor, Dan Snyder was very involved, maybe more so than any owner I dealt with in my career. And he did a great job, by the way. I enjoyed dealing with Dan Snyder.
You know, there's different cultures. The NBA is star-driven. Baseball's got longer contracts. As an agent, is baseball the best because you have the longest contracts, and there are very few elite arms. So if you have a Walker Buehler for the Dodgers, that is hard to replicate on the market.
Yeah, and yet you could say that you got to wait a long time to get to the money in baseball, right? Because for years it takes a long time to go through the system with minors and before you're arbitration eligible and get to free agency. It's a lot longer than the NFL. So there's a give and take. Certainly you could make the argument in baseball that the contracts for the top players are huge. They're fully guaranteed. They've got long terms relative to football, which has got less guaranteed money, shorter term contracts. And the NBA is more akin to Major League Baseball with the fully guaranteed deals. But there are advantages. And for example, one of the things you like about the NFL is you can go right out and you can sign a top rookie right out of the gate. And that guy gets paid early on, and you can get him a second contract after their third year. You know, for example, we got a big contract for Tyreek Hill after year 3 that made him one of the highest paid wide receivers in the NFL. You can't do that in baseball. It takes time. So there's a give and take. There's a lot of positives in all the sports. And if you're lucky enough to represent a great player like Shane Bieber, it's obviously going to be worth the wait.
You know, I want to circle back to when you were called the most hated man in sports for Sports Illustrated. LeBron James famously hated being a villain. And I don't view you like that. But there was a time I did. Just take me inside emotionally. Did you like being a villain, or was it exhausting?
You know, I've never been a villain, Colin. I tell you why. I wanted to be an agent when I was a little boy. My parents, when I was growing up, we lived down the street from the Miami Dolphins training facility. And this is in North Miami, Florida. And my parents became friendly with a bunch of guys in the Dolphins who would hang out at my house. And at that time, I fell in love with those guys and decided I wanted to be an agent. And then I went to the University of Miami, and I became very friendly with a lot of the players on the football team. And it was the great Hall of Famer, Michael Irvin, that got me my first opportunity. He was my friend in college, and he got me an internship with his agent. And while I was at Duke Law School after my first year of law school. And really, I got in the business, Colin, because I loved the players and I wanted to help them. And they were my friends, and that never changed. And at times, I was very controversial, but I never saw myself as a villain. It never bothered me because I always knew my heart was in the right place. And I'm in this business just to help my clients better themselves. An agent is ultimately a professional that an athlete hires to bring their business acumen and experience to represent them and help them make the most of their career. And it's not just contract negotiations. It's dealing with injuries. It's dealing with relationships with their coaches, their organization, management, off the field issues, their personal life. You are trying to set them up for life after professional sports. You're trying to work with them off the field to help them build their brand and make money off the field. So being an agent is such an awesome thing. It's the antithesis of being a villain, because when you do a good job for your agent, for your players, as an agent, that feels great because your clients can then be a role model and impact, thousands of people. So for me, I really love looking back at my career over 33 years and seeing all the people that I've indirectly and directly impacted. And I've always been in this business just to help my clients, and I've had so much fun doing it. That's all. That's why I do this job. It's not, to be in the media or to make the most money. It's really to help the players and their families. And that's what I get the most satisfaction out of. And I'm going to continue to do this as long as I can help my clients and their families.
Anybody ever break your heart? Just break your heart. You lost a client.
Oh yeah. Many times. I mentioned Michael Irvin. Michael Irvin was the guy that helped me get started in this business. And I was his agent early in his career. I was a very young agent, and I was in my early 20s, and he was with the Dallas Cowboys, and he became a Pro Bowl player, and he decided to let his young agent go to hire a veteran agent that was prominent in Dallas who could get him a lot more contracts. And that was devastating for me. I couldn't figure that out because I've always been about, your clients are your friends. There's that bond, like Jerry Maguire, and it was business for Michael. And that broke my heart, but I grew up quite a bit and realized that this is a business as well. But that was a tough one.
Yeah. God. And you were what, 25, 26?
Yeah, exactly. Very young in my career. Never lost a client before. That was a real eye opener. I didn't think it was possible. But that was a shot right to the groin. But Michael Irvin was always a great advocate for mine, even after that. And we've maintained a great relationship to this day. And I'll always be grateful for him. But Michael, if you're listening, you broke my heart, buddy.
What's tougher? A girl breaking up with your Michael Irvin?
Well, that's a good one. I would have to say Michael Irvin. Because, for me, I was a bachelor for a long time. Growing up in Miami, I didn't get married till my mid-40s. Didn't have children until 5 years ago. So I was a little bit of a playboy at the University of Miami. So if a girl broke up with me, you could find another one. But there weren't many Michael Irvins. And he was a Pro Bowl MVP wide receiver. So that was much tougher than any girlfriend that broke up with me.
Yeah,
I bounced back pretty quickly with the girls in my day.
Well, I always appreciate you finding time for me. Love talking to you. Your stories are great, kick ass. And Drew, I always appreciate it. I'm a big fan. I was a cynic early, but I'm a fan now. A lot of people I know speak very highly of you. You're a bottom line guy, no small talk, and you care about people, and it matters to me, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Colin. Keep up the great work.